Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back with another key to soul progress. In the last 2 episodes, we uncovered how wounds become initiations and how pain, when listened to, reveals its sacred message. And today's episode, we step into the heart of alchemy itself. And the key is, in the art of emotional alchemy, the soul transforms pain into Christ-like power, where pain becomes purpose and compassion becomes strength. The language of the soul, power does not mean dominance, it means alignment, the full cooperation of the human with the divine. Christ-like power is love in action. It's the state in which emotion no longer rules, but serves as a sacred current, carrying divine will, carrying divine wisdom. The tripartite action of understanding Christ's power, Christ's love, Christ's wisdom. And the scriptures gives us the key. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 9, it states, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Notice that strength made perfect isn't weakness. Not apart from it. This is emotional alchemy. What the ego calls weakness, the soul calls refinement. Think of a raw iron. It's strong but brittle, and when exposed to fire and forged by pressure, it becomes steel, flexible, enduring, radiant. Likewise, the soul's fire, the sacred fire of love, forges pain into spiritual steel. Let's talk about Aiden as an example. He was a young leader in a community organization that he decided he wanted to serve. He was passionate, visionary, and quietly terrified of losing control. Notice what I said at the end? He had all these qualities of compassion, passion, and vision, seeing what can be. But underneath that was being terrified of losing control. When a project failed and funds were lost, he felt humiliated. His reaction was immediate. Fix, force, and fight. But nothing worked. The harder he pushed, the heavier things felt, until one night he collapsed on his living room floor and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." And something inside replied, "Exactly. Now we can." For weeks afterwards, he practiced letting go of what he couldn't control. Meetings, outcomes, others, opinions of him, opinions of his projects. Slowly, something shifted. Peace began to appear where anxiety once lived. And one morning, while walking by the ocean, he heard within, power is not control. Power is clarity. That moment was his turning point. Aiden had touched Christ-like power, not through force, not through trying to fix something, but through surrender. Neuroscience calls this a state change. The nervous system moving from hyperarousal to coherency. Spirit calls it yielding to divine will. Another way you can think of this is imagine a river hitting a boulder. Force tries to push through. Power simply flows around, knowing it will reach the sea regardless. Every emotional alchemist eventually realizes this truth. You cannot transform what you judge. Pain ceases to control you only when you embrace it with understanding. And when you do, compassion ignites. So when we embrace, it's like Jesus embracing the leopard. And when he embraced the leopard, that leopard changed into a beautiful person that was underneath all of that. He wasn't running away from the leopard. He was embracing it. We had the same way, maybe a little bit different, but how can we embrace our pain and not run from it? Not get angry about it, not judge it, but instead be in listening grace. And we realize that when pain ceases to control you and you begin to embrace it with understanding, compassion takes off. Compassion for yourself, compassion from others becomes truly beautiful. Compassion isn't pity, it's recognition. The awareness that what once hurt you now becomes the very channel through which you can help others. And in modern 21st century neuroscience shows that when we witness suffering with empathy, there are something called neurons that fire in the brain. And the same networks that activate when we experience the pain ourselves is the biology of oneness. And Christ embodied this perfectly. He didn't remove himself from suffering. He entered it consciously, transmuting it through love until even crucifixion became resurrection. So what we're saying here is be aware that there's so much more that happens when we understand the emotional alchemy that is able to occur within us to transmute the baser elements of pain, for example, into the fineness of something better, higher, as from the crucifixion, as we become the resurrection in your life. And this is not theology, it's a template. It's what I'd like to think of it as. It's the pattern every soul follows when emotion is surrendered to the divine intelligence. Think of pain like clay in your hands of spirit. The moment you stop fighting it, the potter begins shaping it into purpose. There's meaning behind the pain. There's meaning for what we're needing to grow and learn around. There's meaning in pain in order in the helping of others because we know what it's like to be in that particular situation. So I'd like you to think about this and let me know your thoughts. There are two fires in life. The fire of reaction and the fire of transmutation. The fire of reaction burns without purpose. It consumes energy and leaves ashes. The fire of transmutation refines. It burns away only what no longer serves. We decide which fire we enter. Aiden entered both. His first fire was fear. I must fix this. His second was surrender. I trust this. And the same circumstances, different vibration. And in brain terms, this is the shift from the limbic loop of fight, flight, freeze, and sometimes appease, to frontal lobe regulation, where logic, creativity, and empathy live. Spiritually, it's the moment from the human will to the divine will. Think of the difference between wildfire and a candlelight. Both burn, but only one illumines. So let me give you a parable, and let me know what you think about this parable. A legend tells of a blacksmith who served a temple. He complained that his work was too hard, his hands scarred, and his back aching. An elder said, "Would you rather the iron never met the flame?" And the smith replied, "Then it would remain cold, dull, and useless." And the elder smiled. "Then thank the flame, for it reveals the strength hidden within the iron." And that story is very soul-centered. Pain is the flame that reveals what was always within. Divine resilience, divine love, divine identity. And the way in which we can integrate this information that I'm sharing is think about 3 stages of emotional alchemy. The first is recognition, right? We face pain honestly, which we talked about in part 1. The second one is revelation. We listen to pain's message. Today, we're talking about resurrection. We transform pain into power, divine power. Resurrection doesn't mean the event changes. It means you change. You stop living from the wound and start living from wisdom. And when you reach this stage, emotions become your servant, not your master. You no longer fear feeling deeply because you know how to transmute whatever arises. This is similar to the soul becoming like sunlight through stained glass, colored by experience, yet radiating pure love, pure light. And here's an analogy. The soul becomes like sunlight through stained glass, colored by experience, yet radiating pure light. Try this exercise during your next quiet moment. Close your eyes and bring to mind a situation that once caused pain, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Imagine the person, the memory, or energy in front of you as a shape of light and color. Say inwardly, I release you to your highest good, and I reclaim my energy as peace. Then see the light brighten expand through your heart until no separation remains. This is emotional alchemy in action. Forgiveness as freedom, compassion as command. Every feeling, every thought, every memory carries vibration. The sacred fire of love, divine compassion, is the universal solvent. Hear me really clear, because if we can get this, and I will continue to talk about this quality of love, the sacred fire of love, divine compassion, is the universal solvent. That's where my mother and father, my father would say, anything less than divine love is a no-no, which I mentioned in my past episode. Because what we know about this universal solvent, it consumes nothing real, only illusion. When you invoke love in the face of pain, you're not being passive. You're yielding the highest power in existence. It turns victimhood into vision, grief into grace, human emotion into divine energy. So what have we learned through these 3 episodes so far? That pain teaches awareness. That awareness invites compassion. And that compassion ignites power, divine power. This is the soul's alchemy. From hurt to healing to holiness. And as we always say, holiness unto the Lord. Truly, holiness unto the Lord. Because the more holy we are, the more that God uses us. And more that God flows through us. And the more we're in tune with God's peace and God's glory. And next week, we'll complete the series with part 4. When feeling becomes right use of power, from dark to divine freedom. We'll explore how emotional intelligence matures into divine intelligence, and how mastery expresses itself in stillness, clarity, and freedom. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the fire subsides, the lesson lands, and only stillness remains. It's in the stillness that true power is born. Not dramatic, not loud, but quiet and unmistakable. And when emotion has done its sacred work, peace rushes in to take its place. It's like the air after lightning, charged, clean, and alive. And the ancients called this the peace that passeth understanding, the calm not dependent on circumstances. It is not the end of feeling. It is the beginning of feeling everything through love. And there's an old story from the monasteries. And it goes like this. A young potter made a beautiful clay vessel for his teacher, but dropped it, and it shattered. In despair, he gathered the pieces, but the teacher said, "Do not weep. Place gold in the cracks." The student mixed powdered gold into resin and filled every fracture. And when the vessel was fired, it glowed with veins of light. The teacher held it up in the sun and said, "Now the vessel is stronger and more beautiful because it remembers its breaking." That is emotional alchemy. The light does not erase your fractures. It illumines them until they become art. And when we allow love to fill the cracks in our story, we don't hide our wounds. We reveal God's craftsmanship within them. God has a way of taking those situations, taking those hurts and pains, taking those disappointments when we surrender and give them to God to refine us in ways that allows our gold to shine. So every element of alchemy has a purpose: fire, air, water, and earth. But in the spiritual science of transformation, there is a fifth element. And you've heard me talk about it, and I will continue to talk about it, and that is love. Love is the catalyst that completes every equation. Without it, understanding remains theory. With it, understanding becomes embodiment. Pain without love becomes trauma. Pain met with love becomes wisdom. And wisdom shared in love becomes service, the highest expression of Christ-like power. So the question becomes, what will I do with what I've healed? Will I hide it, or will I use it as light for another's path? Because every time you use your transformed pain to lift someone else, you multiply grace. That is the true miracle. Not that the wound disappears, but that it becomes a window through which others can see hope. And we all need hope. And we all need examples. So think of yourself now as a tuning fork of compassion. When you walk into a room, your field carries the resonance of what you've become and what you've overcome. Not in words, but in vibration, calm presence, quiet certainty, effortless kindness. That's Christ-like power in action, the authority of peace. You don't have to preach healing. You are the evidence of healing. You don't have to prove love. You radiate love. And that radiation does more good than 1,000 explanations. Modern physics tells us that coherent light, laser light, is simply light aligned in phase. Spiritual power works the same way. The more aligned your thoughts, feelings, and soul intention become, the more focused your influence. You are becoming coherent light, the divine laser of compassion in human form. So as we're moving towards a close for this episode, place your attention on your heart. Not to analyze, but to remember. Every experience, every tear, every act of forgiveness has brought you closer to your real strength. The strength of tenderness, the authority of humility, the courage of love. That's the Christ within you. Not distant, but intimate. Not unreachable, but unfolding. When you feel those familiar echoes of pain, of discomfort, smile a little. They're not setbacks. They're invitations. They remind you of how far you've come and how luminous you already are. Let the heart whisper what the mind can't yet grasp. You are the fire and the gold. You are the vessel, and the light it holds is the art of emotional alchemy. Turning what once broke you into what now blesses the world. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.